Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be showing us how to make this skater dress with a collar. If this is something you're interested in learning, then stick with me to the end of the video. Alright then, let's get into it. I'll start with the flay. So for the flay, I'm going to be using a 360-degree circle. So first I'll determine how much fabric I'll be folding to achieve my 360-degree flay. Now these are the measurements I'll be working with: the waist length, the round waist measurement, and the gown length. Everything else will be derived from this measurement. Now for the length of the flay, I'm going to subtract the waist length from the gown length. So that is 52 minus 16 inches. And that gave us 36 inches. Now for the radius of the waist, so how much we're going to cut out to get the round waist measurement. Our round waist measurement in this case would be the round waist plus zip allowance. So the zip allowance is 1.5 on each side, that's 3 inches. So that is 27 plus 3 inches. So our total is 30 inches. So for the radius, we'll be dividing that measurement by 6.28. And that gave us 4.75. Now to get the folding I would add that 4.75 radius to the length of the flay. So that is 36. So for the radius, I would round that up to 5 inches. So 36 plus 5 inches, that is 41. Plus 1 inch allowance, that is 42 inches. So that is how much I'm going to be folding. So I'm going to be folding my fabric on fold 42 by 42, so it's going to be 42 on fold on one side and 42 on fold on the other side. That means opened up, the fabric is going to be a square of 84 by 84. So I'll be using this Ankara fabric, and the fabric is 45 inches length and is 6 yards width. So I can get 42 by 42 on one side, but on the other side it's a bit short, so I would need to add fabric to make up for the rest of the inches I need. Now there are a number of ways to do this, to add fabric to your flay. You can either do it after you've cut out the flay, or you do it before. I'm going to add mine before I go ahead to do the cutting. So I first determine how much fabric I need to add to this to get to 84 inches. So I currently have 46, and then I'm just going to count how much more I need to get to 84. 84 minus 46 is 38. So I'm going to be cutting out a strip of fabric that is 38 inches long and 84 inches wide, so that I can add it up to my other fabric and have 84 inches by 84 inches. Now that I have my fabric, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and couple both fabrics together. And it's done, and I have given it a good press, so I'll just go ahead and fold this fabric up. So I'm going to take one end to meet the other end, and then I'll fold it once again, taking one end to meet the other. So basically I'm folding it like an handkerchief. It's going to be a square with the top side on fold. Next, I'm going to apply the radius. So the radius I have is 4.75. So I would use that as a guide, because from history, once I use the exact measurement, I usually get something bigger than the waist measurement. So I'll just reduce it a bit and measure 4.5 around the quarter circle from the top. So once I've measured it, then I'll take a measurement around that curve to see if it gives me the measurement I need. So measuring around the quarter circle, I have 7.5, which is perfect. So the waist is 30 divided by 4, that's 7.5. So if you measure yours and your measurement is not accurate, you can either go up that curve by 0.5 inch or go down the curve by 0.5 inch, depending on if your measurement is smaller or bigger, until you get the accurate measurement that you need. So next, I'm going to apply the length of the flay. So I'll be measuring the length from the waist up there to the length of the flay. So I'll keep moving my tape around from the curve at the top until I cover the curve at the bottom, and then I'll use a curved line to connect the points I'm making. Because of how long this video was, I've split the video into two, into the drafting and the sewing. If you're interested in learning how I sew this dress, then I'll be uploading that video on Friday by 2 p.m. But if you're watching this video in the future, it's linked in the description box. Next, I'll go ahead and cut out the flay. Now, because I have all my sides on fold, the next thing I want to do is to open up where my zip allowance would be. I'm going to have the zip at the back. I want the joining I have here to be at the back. So I'm going to split that area for the zip allowance. Next, I will go ahead and cut out the lining for the flay. For this dress, I made my lining short, but if you want your dress to have more body, then make your lining long, the same length as the flay, so that you use the lining to turn the flay. It will give you more body and have a little more structure. Okay, now I'm just going to put the lining and the main fabric aside and start working on the bodies. I'll start with the front pattern. First, I would apply my vertical measurements, the bust length, which is 10, and the waist length, which is 16 inches, and draw a line across. I would apply my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 7 inches, and at that point, I'll drop down by 1 inch. For the neckline, you can divide the round bust measurement by 12 and use that measurement for the width and the depth. So mine, I had 3 and some, so I just rounded it down to 3 inches. I'd mark the neck depth and neck width of 3 inches and then use a curved ruler to connect the point to form my neckline. Next, I'll connect the neckline to the 1 inch shoulder drop with a straight line. And then from that 1 inch drop, I'll calculate my round bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5, and I have 7 3/4. I'll use a ruler to draw that line across, and that would form my chest line. At the chest line, I would apply the same measurement I have at the shoulder and then connect that point to the shoulder drop with a straight line. Next, I will apply a quarter of my bust measurement. So the bust is 38 divided by 4 is 9.5. So apply that on the chest line and on the bust line, and then I'll connect it with a straight line. Next, I'll go to the armhole line I drew initially and split that line in two. So now I'm just trying to create the armhole curve. So I'll split that line in two and mark the midpoint. And then at the midpoint, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. Next, I'm going to connect the strip points together with my pattern master. So the top to the midpoint with a straight line, and then the midpoint to the bust area with a curve. Next, I'm going to create a dart, and I'll start by applying my bust span measurement divided by 2. So bust span is nipple to nipple point. So my bust span is 7 inches, and that measurement divided by 2 is 3.5. So I'll mark it at the waistline and at the bust line and use a straight line to connect those points together. Next, I will mark 1/2 inch at both sides of that straight line and then connect it to the bust point with a slanted line. And then I would apply the waist measurement. So the waist is 28, and 28 divided by 4 is 7 inches. So I'd mark 7 inches, and then I would add the dart intake I took initially. So my dart intake is 1 inch. So I'll transfer that 1 inch and mark it. So I'll connect the waist to the bust with a straight line. So I'm going to be using the same pattern to cut out the back, so I'll just make a few markings to differentiate between the front and the back. So for the back, the dart line goes all the way to the chest line, so I'll just extend my dart line, and I'll be using the red marker for the back. And now for the neckline for the back, The width is going to be the same you have for the front, but the depth should range from 1 to 1.5 inches. You don't want it too deep because we're going to be attaching a collar to the neckline. Unless if you're going for a deep neck collar, then you can do it the way you want. But for mine, I've used 1.5 inches. So I use a curved ruler to connect the neckline, and then I'll go ahead and cut out the pattern. Next, I'll transfer to fabric, starting with the back pattern. So I'll place the back pattern on the fabric and leave enough space for the zip allowance at the center back. And I'll also leave enough space at the bottom for the allowance at the bottom. So my zip allowance is 1.5 inches. So I would leave that space and then pin my pattern to the fabric. Next, I would use a chalk to mark out 1/2 inch allowance around the neckline, around the shoulder, and around the armhole. Alright guys, if you're finding this video helpful so far, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you know you're already subscribed to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post a new video. Now at the center back, the waistline, I'm going to go in by 1 inch. And then connect that point to the 1.5 inch at the top. So this is to account for the slope of the back. And then I'll add my allowance to the sides. So I'll be using 1.5 inches allowance. But because I took in 1 inch at the bottom of the waist, I'm going to add that 1 inch at the bottom of the side as well. So at the bottom, I'm going to have 2.5 inches. And then at the top I'm going to have 1.5 inch, and then I'll connect it. So I'll cut out the center back and then mark 1/2 inch down from the waistline. So from the waistline I have 1/2 inch sewing allowance, so I'll mark that and then cut out my whole pattern. Next, I'm going to transfer the darts to the fabric. I'll draw the line and then make a notch, and then I would measure the length of the dart and transfer the length to the fabric. Now I'm done with the back piece. I'm going to use the pattern to cut out the front piece. So first I'll cut out the neckline, and then I'll place the pattern on the fabric on fold, ensuring I have sufficient space for the allowance. Once I'm happy with the positioning, I'll pin it down. Next, I'll draw 1/2 inch sewing allowance at the bottom, 1.5 inch at the sides, 1/2 inch at the neckline, the shoulder, and the armhole. And then I'll cut it out. So I'll do the same thing I did for the back, transfer the darts to the main fabric. Next, I'll cut out the sleeve. If you don't already know how to draft the sleeve, I have a detailed video on my channel. I'll link that up here and in the description box. So I have 2.5 inches allowance for the sleeve. So I'll fold that before I cut out the length. This will help your sleeve to balance properly once you turn it with the lining. Next, I'm going to cut out the lining for the sleeves and the bodice. So this lining is going to be short because it's going to be pulling the 2.5 inches I left as allowance up. So that's why the lining is shorter than the main fabric. And then I've also cut out the lining for the bodice, which is the exact measurement as the bodice. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one.